Of course she hates seeing people having fun. This is KJ we're talking about. This is without a box of Kleenex. Java man, I was sitting here swallowing my pills, trying to get ready for the day, trying to get ready for this. I'm on my way to do a complete scrub of the floors. I've been so sick and haven't been able to do much of anything. I need to mop today. I need to sweep mop and dust, and I'm going to do it. I feel almost well enough to do so, even though I'm very pale. Hey, Jen, if you don't know who I am, I'm Suzanne Titkemeyer. I used to write for Pathos, a column for almost 10 years called No Longer Quivering. I wrote about the quiverful movement, about the whole crazy ball of wax. I'm just going to say it, the whole crazy ball of wax that is evangelicalism. So yesterday, I was very amused to see that a certain person without a box of Kleenex was using information that I had said the day before on my live stream. Whoops. Yeah, I'm dressed in my Let's Scrub clothing. So she has been on her high horse about this. Hey, Christine, about this 7 mountain mandate. There are a couple things that she doesn't get about it. Number one, it's ubiquitous. It's like saying the ATI IBLP is the C word, but it really cuts across just about every version of evangelicalism. You can find somebody practicing it. Same thing with the 7 Mountain Mandate. You can find somebody practicing it in some small way. Now, day before yesterday, I pointed out that it is connected to the prosperity gospel. So you'll see places that are preaching a gospel that's not really a gospel. They're doing the prosperity gospel about you do X, Y, and Z, God will bless you abundantly. I've seen so many people hanging on to that in my old quiverful church. We had a lot of people that were not wealthy. Not only not wealthy, they couldn't put food on the table for the kids. Some types of evangelicalism seem to go hand in hand with poverty, particularly when you mix in the 7 Mountain nonsense and other types of things where they think they're not supposed to ever work for anybody else. They have to work for themselves. Yet they're not very, hey, Kira, they're not very successful at anything they're doing. They're not successful at all at business. They don't have an education. So I just want to point out a lot of times with these kinds of things like 7 Mountain or IBLP, you're not going to be getting the most educated people. You're getting people who are somewhat on the lower down the scale as far as education. They may be homeschooled. They may have a basic education, but they're not going to have enough of an education for it to matter. So I saw last night she's trying to link, not only is she stealing what I said and using it without saying, hey, this came from Suzanne Titkemeyer. And I did not name my source for any of this. Some of this I knew, some of it I researched and pulled out because it had been so long since I looked at the 7 Mountain Mandate. And I do remember that Crazy Lance Wallnow was the one that really started it in the 2000s and was pushing it hard. So there around 2005, it was everywhere. Every ministry I knew of was at least talking about it, even if they weren't promoting it severely. So last night I saw she tried to drag Kenneth Copeland into it and was tagging him. First of all, I'm not even sure which Kenneth Copeland she means. Kenneth Copeland the first is dead. Does she mean his son or his grandson? She's going to get this story really hard, but the truth is, if her videos don't get the views she wants, she'll drop it as fast as she starts reporting about it. I give her a week or two. Christine, I do too. And it's pretty clear when these things come out that she doesn't know what in the hell she's talking about. Like I said, even I had to stop and back up and go look at it again because it'd been so long since I fooled with the 7 Mountain Mandate people that I had to jog my memory because it had been just too many years. I'm not sure if research ethics was included in her Spanish language degree. Nope. Kira, I think it's going to happen. My husband's harassing me to go back to church. He wants me back at church. And he's not getting that there's nothing for me there, number one. Number two, there's a whole lot of plague rats. We still have high numbers here in Costa Rica, even though Costa Rica is about to lift the mask mandate. And they're lifting all mandates at the end of the month, which kind of blows my mind because I know how crazy Ticos and Gringos are running around getting into shit, and they're going to be exposing each other. I'm still going to be wearing my mask. I'm still going to be doing the social distancing thing. Somehow I have managed to make it all this time without catching COVID. Even after a week-long hospitalization, I didn't catch COVID. And I think COVID is the lazy doctor's answer to everything, because when I first was put in the hospital, they tried to say I had COVID, even though I had COVID tested negative from 12 hours before. So Kenneth Copeland, who is Kenneth? Kenneth runs his own church and his own university and his whole thing. I'd written about him probably about a year ago when I was writing about signs and wonders. I wrote a piece for John Pierce of the tippling philosopher of Patheos. I would write for him occasionally when I was done with, I was doing NLQ. Why? Because sometimes some of this stuff would come out and I'd have to have a place to put it. John O had been talking to me about signs, wonders, miracles, gold dust, feathers, jewels dropping from the ceiling, all the crazy signs and wonders that we saw in the in the charismatic movement, the charismatic evangelical movement that kind of went into hyperdrive around 2001, I think it was. They were pushing that. And what I'd done is one of my friends had sent around a tape, not a tape, what am I saying? A YouTube video of Kenneth Copeland at Kenneth Copeland's church. Kenneth Copeland Jr., not senior. And what happened is a holy laughter broke out. And the people who were looking at this, who were former friends of mine, were saying, oh, well, guess what? Let's have a Holy Ghost party soon. Let's all get together and we'll have a Holy Ghost laughter party. So they're all laughing and jumping around and doing the thing and laughing more. And I started watching. Oh, hey, Do Good Letters. I started watching it thinking, that's the biggest bunch of BS I've ever seen. And this is me who used to love holy laughter. Now I'm able to look back and say, hey, maybe that wasn't God. Maybe it was just us whipping ourselves into some hysterical frenzy. That's how I'm looking at it now. This is some self-involved thing. Now, it felt really good. And afterwards, you would feel just absolutely wonderful. But then again, I challenge you to do something like read a Mad magazine or watch a comedy for a half hour and laugh for a half hour, and then tell me you don't feel equally good. So anyway, I was picking apart the holy laughter thing and was pointing out some different things to look at, to consider about the holy laughter, including the fact that the bodyguards never lost control. Everybody else may have lost control, but security and worship team never did. You got to look and see if this is something. So anyway, long story short, I wrote an article about it. So now she's trying to tie Kenneth Copeland to this. That's like trying to say that I'm going to cite my husband's favorite. He's not my favorite. I don't like him much. Joel Osteen. It's let's trying to say that Joel Osteen is the only minister who is preaching a prosperity gospel. Clearly, that's not true. There's so many of them that are preaching. Personally, I believe in the move of the Holy Spirit. However, I don't think it can be forced, and not everyone asks for my opinion. Do good letters, that can happen, but I don't think it's quite as common as they're trying to say. I had an experience one time where I was watching Tommy, of all dumb things, and found myself just slain in the spirit on the floor, watching the very end of Tommy, listening to the Holy Spirit tell me that the song at the very end Right behind you, I see the millions. I get excitement at your feet. That song was actually about God. And I believe that now, particularly after reading Pete Townsend's autobiography, where he talked about trying to reproduce the sound of the angels that he kept hearing. I think sometimes that it's very possible to hear from God in our daily lives when we're going about and doing something, watching a movie in the store, whatever. But I'm not entirely convinced that putting together thousands of people who have expectations of a move of the Holy Spirit is anything more than mass hysteria. Maybe some of the people involved are actually having a real Holy Spirit moment, but I don't think everybody is. It's just not like that at all, I don't think. So I was pretty much debunking that whole mass thing for John's site. So she's trying to link him. Like I said, linking Kenneth Copeland Jr. is just about like trying to say that Joel Osteen is the only prosperity gospel out there, which is not true. We all know they all say it. That's what I'm saying about the Seven Mountain Mandate. So many of these ministers use this, and they don't call it that. They all call it different things. The dance team is calling it 7M. Possible drug use. I don't know, Java man. I wasn't using drugs. I don't know about anybody else. I mean, the strongest thing I probably had in my system was a Benadryl. Maybe Benadryl's the gateway drugs to Lulu Cuckoo. So the only one she knows about, that could well be. I don't think that she would easily stumble across Kenneth Copeland though. So I'm curious as to how she came up with Copeland. She's been going around listening to people's videos and reading what they have to say. That's all she's doing. And instead of saying, hey, I saw this here, I saw that there, she's pulling it out of her ass and pretending like she is the only one. But I'm just going to say again, for those in the back who just came in, when she started saying that it was linked to the prosperity gospel, it was almost a full 24 hours after I myself came up with that and said that, because it is linked with the prosperity gospel. But for her to say that tells me that she's copying again and not giving anybody credit, which is just her style. So this is just another case of it. In Kay's world, whatever she knows is all there is to know, in my humble opinion. I'm lost as to what dance group Kleenex is. Duggar letters, this whole dance group thing. I'm not sure, especially since after seeing the dance group's outfits. I'm not sure what evangelical branch or doctorate or church or whatever that they are connected to, because let me tell you something. After having spent years in the Quiverful movement and the evangelical churches, I'm going to tell you one thing for sure. That kind of clothing that they're wearing in the dance troupe is beyond extremely frowned upon. I mean, our church dance troupe, they wouldn't even let us wear pants. We had to wear flowy skirts. I've got a number of them in my closet now still. Flowy skirts and loose tops with like angel sleeves. So there's a whole lot of evangelicalism that is going to frown upon those outfits. So I'm not sure if this group she's talking about is that linked to any church, any evangelical church, not linked to John MacArthur or any of those guys. Maybe linked to Hillsong LA, maybe, but I don't see it either because too much flesh is shown. So I'm looking at this and I'm not entirely sure who it is she's actually taking on. Now, I did notice this morning there is an Instagram person, group, whatever, that has popped up to debunk her, that calls her some of the names that the anti-KJ group, or the accountables, as we're calling ourselves, are saying about her lack of journalistic ethics and morals. They're calling her out for lying. And I can see very clearly that she's very possibly not telling the truth about this group. It doesn't fit. Some of the things she's saying don't fit at all with the Seven Mountain Mandate, as I understand it. As we studied it at my old church, as I've been to conferences hosted by Lance Wallnau, who's the one that grabbed that and ran with it in the early 2000s. He was really the one that brought the Seven Mountain Mandate into the greater evangelical world. Now, Lance is a whole other box of trouble. He has a business degree, a marketing degree from some Christian university, yet he screams and and proclaims that he's some kind of business expert and he's a millionaire and all this crap that's clearly not true, that would be pretty easy to debunk. He does that, and he's really the one that promoted this. He wrote a book about it, along with Bill Johnson from Bethel Redding, which we already know from just the Olive Heiligethal situation, what a box of nutballs they are. Now, the church I attended was linked with Bill Johnson's church. We did all the studies. We read all about Bill Johnson's books on healing. Healing was the big thing. And Seven Mountain Mandate also has healing as one of the platforms to do away with traditional medicine. All you need to do is go get healed by being prayed for. But here's the thing about Bill Johnson and some of the other healing ministries. They actually teach a philosophy that if you pray for healing and you don't get healing, there's something stopping the healing. And what would that something be? That something would be your own unbelief or some sin in your life. Your lack of being healed by Jesus always reverts back to you. They always blame you for it in some way, shape, or form. Your non-belief, your secret sin, a generational curse, all kinds of just really ridiculous stuff. And I'm like, really? Take the damn antibiotic, you know? For me, that was a difficult thing when I was at my old church, because I had my asthma then. It wasn't as bad as it got later when I finally got my diagnosis. But I was being told many times to ignore my symptoms, to ignore them, to throw my medicines away, to throw my CPAP machine away. I was told many times to do that crap and just to trust Jesus. And I got myself into kind of a worse shape. And I think that's one of the pieces why my mast cell spun out of control, is because if I was listening to this crap coming out of my church. I think maybe they would make an exception for TikTok in the interest of bringing in big bucks, maybe, but you're not supposed to dress like that if you are part of most evangelical churches. I mean, I don't have a problem with leggings and sports bra thing is very verboten, even for something like that. So I'm not really sure how connected they all are. I just don't have an idea on that. Have you heard about the faith-based health insurance plans? They don't really cover anything, but they will pray for you. Java Man, I actually have a couple stories about that, because, the thing that got me into my old church was that my youngest child almost died from ITP. They don't, to this day, they still don't know why her platelets died. She still has immune system issues. It's likely linked to something that I've got. So she, like me, has to take steps to stay healthy and to do different things to hold down. So we're kind of in the same boat on that. But anyway, the whole time we were going through that, we were going through the don't go to the doctor, trust Jesus to heal you crap. And I'm kind of like, I believe Jesus can heal me, but I'm going to the doctor. There's no reason he can't work through the doctor. So I was always at loggerheads with a lot of them over the whole healing thing. And where was I? The faith-based plans. So many people I knew ditched their insurance and did the faith-based plans. And the way it worked with a lot of these I saw is you wrote in with your need and say, hey, I need X amount of dollars so I can have my liver removed. Something like that. I had a girlfriend who had faith-based stuff, and she went to the hospital because she had a huge tumor back here and said, hey, I don't have insurance. What can you help me with? So they knocked everything way down to the cash price. Hospitals can do that, so negotiate. And then she wrote into the Samaritan's Ministry, I think it was that one, I'm not sure, and said, hey, I need X amount of dollars. I have to have this tumor removed, blah, blah, blah. And son of a gun, if the money didn't come in. But I'm going to say this. I saw so many times on the Samaritan's list, they would send out a newsletter with requests for things that needed to happen for people's various sundry medical problems. And sometimes people didn't get the money. I mean, sometimes it was huge things. And mental health. If you're praying, your depression will go away. If not, you don't believe hard enough. Do good letters. Yeah, same here. That's a big one. And I always tell the tale of us, my husband, having depression for some years. And they were telling him at our church that he didn't have enough belief. He was too selfish. They told him any number of things. And it turns out he had a tumor on his parathyroid glands. Now he has just a teeny tiny little bit of one parathyroid gland left because he actually had cancer on his parathyroid glands. They took almost all of them out. He ended up, after having a failed surgery locally, going to see Dr. Norman in Tampa, Florida, who runs the Norman Parathyroid Clinic. If you ever have to have anything done for your parathyroid, may I suggest Dr. Norman. You do like us and freak out and think, oh my God, because he wants $5,000 up front just to look at your records, much less do surgery on you. It's worth every penny. Every penny. He will get you straightened out. He's the one world expert on parathyroid glands. So as soon as this was done, my husband's depression lifted. It was his parathyroid glands all that time. And there was no amount of praying that he not be selfish or that he be delivered or whatever that was ever going to fix that, unless God went in there and zapped all of his parathyroid glands. And that didn't happen all the times he got prayer. Chat is disconnected. Please wait. My internet is really slow. Is anybody even getting me, or is this? Yeah. So I'm gonna just continue talking. So that's really how it is. They have this magical thinking. KJ is sometimes will refer to that, and she doesn't understand that the magical thinking is a big part of what goes on in some of these more out there evangelical groups. They think that is the, oh, did I get reconnected? Oh, goodness. The magical thinking is a big thing. And the flip side of the magical thinking is blaming everything on the devil and saying that if you don't get healed or you're still depressed, you clearly have other stuff going on. That is another thing that's so frustrating to me about the 7 mountain mandate. It does sound good, the 7 mountains of God. You're going up to the top. You're going to take over the world. You're going to put this theocracy in place. We're going to have nothing but Christian everything, and it's going to be a witness to the world, and the world is going to come in. And then Israel gets blown out of the water, and Jesus comes back. So that's why evangelicals are also so incredibly interested in Israel and having Israel go to war against all these nations. A parathyroid gland, Kira, you have 4 of them. They're on either side of your actual thyroid. And they control calcium and different things. And my husband had high calcium levels. They couldn't figure it out. So they found out later it was the tumors on the parathyroid gland. It's kind of rare. Not everybody knows how to do the surgery. Dr. Norman is an expert at it. And he says that you could live with just the tiniest little bit of a parathyroid gland. I just know he has to have his calcium levels checked to make sure the little nub hadn't gone nuts. You owe me a Coke? Jinx, yeah. Oh, you can see it here. Be good. Either side, exactly, right along there somewhere. And he had to have, actually, Dr. Norman went in there and cut off some nodules on the thyroid as well. So if you ever start having really bad depression that won't lift and no amount of talk therapy or drugs helps, go get a physical. They won't tell you that in fundamentalist churches, in Pentecostal churches, evangelical churches. They won't tell you any of that. They'll say it's the devil. And it's anything but the devil. Anything but a devil. I've always said, and I said it then too, but I said it quietly then. The devil doesn't have much work to do, considering these people tend to shoot themselves in their own foot in such a way the devil didn't have to do a damn thing. Suffer from anxiety and depression, I think medication. Yeah, Sarah, you had to be careful of those people. When they start saying that, just say, thank you, but no, because they may not know, and it wouldn't be a bad idea maybe to go get a physical. It wasn't until my husband got one of his post-kidney cancer physicals that we even discovered this. I'd never heard of it before. So that's really all I have to say about KJ. She is swimming in the deep end. She has no sources. She doesn't know what in the heck she's talking about with this stuff. It's very confusing. He probably is watching and eating popcorn. I laugh so hard at that image because it's true. They don't have to do. He wouldn't have to do a thing. Hey, Aaron. Hey, Aaron. Hope you're doing well. So that's it. She doesn't have any original sources. She's repeating everything she's hearing from other people. She's pulling it out of her ass. It's sort of like what she did with the ATII BLP, except that with them, she did a little more research than this. This is just kind of flailing around looking for stuff. God gave us gifts, and for me, the doctor is a gift from God. Kira, amen. Very confusing. It's all very confusing. Yes, it is. It is. It is. Brindley, I don't know how big. I think they were like double or triple. They took all of them out, but one tiny little nubbin. And somewhere here, I have my notebook where I have all our surgeries and crap in it, and I have photographs of them. They're pretty gnarly looking. They were probably a good this size. He had bulging in his neck that we had no idea was that. Yeah, so there we go. There we go. Since KJ is floundering, how long before is her channel going to last? I don't know, because she's trying her damnedest to come up with new content. And here's the thing. She's picking apart evangelicalism. She's majoring in the minors, and I think she's going to turn people off. Like I said, even though I had studied this 7 Mountain Mandate in the past, I had to go back and take a look. I had to pull up my own notes from when I used to go to those churches. I had to look. I had to take a look online. I had to read some articles. And I had to look at awful Lance Wallnau's own website. She's not mentioned him once. And it's kind of funny because he is the one that took the 1975 vision in 2000, early 2000s, and just promoted it out the ass. Lord, why didn't you save me? I prayed so hard. Yep, and ambulance and surgeons, why didn't you use them? Exactly. The Duggar train is out of steam. Not only is it out of steam, I think that it's likely that it might hit her eventually with a cease and desist eventually. I have a feeling that's coming. I know Jim Bob is very litigious. The other thing I wanted to say about the Duggars today is Sarah, she's got the luck of the devil, so I don't know if she'll ever be canceled. I want to say this about the Duggars because I got into kind of a Twitter tiff with everybody. Well, not everybody, with one person yesterday over this. I have to speak on this. This was someone that kept claiming that because Josh is he's held at a local jail in Arkansas, that he's going to get no time whatsoever, that he's probably going to get time served, slapped on the wrist, and released because Arkansas. I kept pointing out to her, he was convicted in federal jail. I mean, the federal legal system. Federal legal, not state. The state of Arkansas has nothing more to do with him than the fact they're housing him right now for the feds until his sentencing. After the sentencing, he's probably going to go to, I can't remember if it's Phoenix or Tucson, but one of those two federal prisons has a section where all they put in are their sexual offenders, all of them, because if they don't, they get killed in other federal facilities. Maybe the devil is, yeah, a pact with the devil. She does need to go back to she does need to go back. She does need to go back to that. So yeah, that's Stinky. Hey, Stinky. So he's been held for the feds. He was convicted on 2 counts. Each one of those counts carries between 5 to 20 years. He's going to get some time. Will it be the minimum? Who knows? Will it be the maximum? Who knows? And here's what I know. The judge can also set aside and impose his own amount of time if this was a scenario where it was the jury that was going to decide. How do I know this? Because I saw it happen in another case I was following closely when Jack Shope from First Baptist Church in Hammond, Indiana, the people who were pretty much running the IFB, the Independent Fundamentalist Baptists, he was convicted of violations of the Mann Act, taking a 16-year-old girl across state lines to have sexy fun times. He was convicted of violating the Mann Act in federal court. He took a plea deal of 10 years, finally. And his church decided to harass the judge about how he deserved no time whatsoever. Well, you know what happened? The judge got so fed up with people harassing him to give him less time than the 10, and that they had arrived at the 10, that the judge set that agreement aside and gave him like 14 years, gave him more time because he said what he did was so heinous. So even if it was a situation where a jury or there was a plea deal in place, that's not the final word on this. The judge, the federal judge, is the one that has the ability to give the sentence. And they can, like I said, they can throw out a sentencing guideline. They can throw all of that out and sentence them. I mean, they have to stick with the federal guideline, but they don't have to. They can give a maximum. He could get maximum. It's concurrent, though, yes. So he's getting a max of 20, not a max of 40. It depends. Sometimes it's concurrent. Sometimes it's consecutively. That also depends upon the judge. So I'm thinking he's probably going to get maybe not 20 years, but he's going to get some time. I mean, there's no doubt. They're not going to let him off on this. The state of Arkansas has nothing to do with any of this. He's likely going to end up in either the Phoenix or the Tucson. I can never remember which one it is that has the unit of the sex offenders, but he's going to end up there. Yeah, that happens too, Kira. The not enough serotonin. Federal prison. So Edith Baker, Emily D. Baker, I would believe, saying that it's concurrent. Many times it is, unless the judge decides in his wisdom to make it consecutive, which doesn't happen very often. It is technically a first-time offense, but the minimum they can give him is 5 years. They have to give him something. They can't just slap him on the wrist. There's a mandatory minimum. It's 5 years for this. 5 years is a long time. You're right. Any truth in her claim? She's an expert witness for the Netflix documentary on the IBLP. Kira, I don't think so. I spoke to them early on in this when they were starting to put it together. I spoke to them at length, probably 3 or 4 hours. I'm not going to be using the documentary because the ATI, IBLP were not my primary focus, and I was never part of that. Now, the church I went to, we did have some members that were supporters of the IBLP. I was not one of them. at all. So while I know it, I gave them a lot of information. I can hardly think that they would use KJ because, first of all, a lot of her information about the IBLP is wrong. She's derivative. She's not original. I think they probably will go with people like Heather Heath who lived through that crap. They're going to go with people who were involved, who lived through it, all of that. They're not going to go with those of us that are sidelined and maybe have been on the edges. Hey, T King. So I don't think that she stands much. Yeah, Jujubee. It's going to be between the 5 and the 20. I mean, that is it. I don't think they're going to do the secondary charge at the same rate. Well, he could maybe appeal, but I think that he has already tried to appeal the verdict a bunch of times and his appeals keep getting thrown out for being ridiculous. He would have to come up with a legitimate reason that makes sense that he can sell to the court to get overturned. I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't. 8 to 12 sounds right. Just knowing what happened. Yeah, hit that like button, subscribe, whatever. I do all the YouTube things. I keep forgetting to say that. So anyway, I think he'll get 8 to 12 too, particularly after looking at guys like Jack Shope, who it was his first offense too, but it was a violation of the Mann Act. Settled for 10. He signed for 10. They were wanting 10, and the judge put it aside and said no 14. She might be interviewed, but not as an expert witness. Brenda Lee, they probably talked to her like they talked to me, like they talked to a ton of people. But I can't see them using her because she's not an expert. She's had nothing to do with the IBLP other than just reading about them online and getting about half the crap wrong and then copying everybody else's stuff on them. Make her go away. Yeah, that could be too. And it could be that when they started talking to her, either she said something so outre, so out there that they were like, okay, move along. Or they may have asked her something that was outrageous that she didn't have a good answer for. They didn't ask me anything outrageous. I just told them my stories, some of my crazier stories about Quiverful and some of the things that I witnessed happen and were involved with. I think, like the Gwen Shamblin documentaries, I talked to 2 documentary makers and did not make it into one. The other, who knows? I doubt I did. But they kept asking me questions like, did I think someone bumped off Gwen? And I just had to laugh and go, no, evangelical overconfidence is what killed her. Her husband wasn't ready to fly a jet. The jet was old and possibly didn't have the best maintenance record, from what I understand. His license was expired because he hadn't taken his physical. A lot of times you'll see in the evangelical world that people, I don't want to say they're reaching above their pay grade, but they're claiming they can do things that they actually cannot do. They think they can do, and sometimes that has some really tragic consequences. And that's what I think happened there. I'm not willing to entertain the idea of conspiracies. And that's clearly where they're going. And that's where I'm thinking that the way down season 2 will go. I think they will go with conspiracies and looking at all the different things. So I don't think she's going to. It's not considered a violent crime. So I don't know what's going to happen with her and any possible documentaries. See, here's the thing about documentaries. I just want to say that. And articles and different things. They can talk to you all day. It doesn't mean they use you, and it doesn't mean that they even give you a credit if they use it in the stuff you're talking about. I mean, you might push him to something else. I had 4 times in the last year where I talked to documentaries, and that's not the only time that's happened for me. I've talked to journalists from every publication you could think of. I've given so much background information, but I think I've only been credited like a handful of times. And I'm fine with that. That's kind of how the nature of the beast works. And so, whatever. I don't think that the Dunning-Kruger effect. Yes, Chocolate Man, that is definitely works at work too, and it kills people, unfortunately. When you don't have the correct anything. So anyway, Josh doesn't think what he did is wrong, I'm sure. Josh has a whole history of being less than truthful. His daddy has bought him out of everything. His daddy will not be able to buy him out of federal jail, unfortunately. He doesn't know that. Computer crimes, yeah. So he probably will only get 8 to 12. Oh, so I said I was going to tell some Mardi Gras stories, but I'm kind of out of juice right now. I'm trying to recover from this stupid hospitalization I had, which was the worst. I've got to say that I've been in the hospital off and on my entire life with the asthma. This one was the pits. This one just was like none other. And I got to say this about KJ and all this. You know, we've talked about her. Everybody picks on her for wearing a diaper one time online. She would do these long 4, 5, 6, 7 hour live streams and never get up to go to the bathroom after everybody was picking on her for going to the bathroom during a live stream and not shutting the door, not washing her hands. Everybody was picking on her about that big time. So then somebody got a screenshot of her wearing what clearly looked like a diaper through her. I shouldn't even say diaper. We were talking about this earlier on one of the sites that I hang out on. Adult incontinence garment. There are other things that people were saying that names that were coming up with instead of diaper, and it probably is right because a diaper is what a baby wears. Protective garment, different things. So I've got to strip that out of my vocabulary because it's ancient. Okay, so she was caught wearing this thing, this protective garment. This depends. He talked to the document and make Aaron, you're right about that. Nothing comes from those things sometimes. I've done it and I don't worry about it. I don't worry about it at all. I just talk to people. I share my story. If they use it, great. If they don't use it, great. It is what it is. There's nothing you could she could, Java Man. She could. So anyway, she was wearing her Depends and everybody saw it. Like I said, one time my son asked me, he says, who is this without a box of Kleenex you keep ranting about on your channel? Because sometimes my kids will watch my channel. And I said, well, it's kind of complex. And I explained a little bit. And he said, oh, is that the gal that wears the diaper that they talk about on Kiwi Farms? And I said, bingo. So he knew she was. So anyway, during my recent hospital stay, because I was having some intestinal upset, I was not having any kind of leakage and I was not losing control of my bowels. But the hospital demanded I put on a Depends. And I have to tell you, and it was a Depends brand, Depends, I only wore it for a couple hours. It was the most uncomfortable thing I have ever worn. It was crinkly, it was plasticky, it was just not comfortable. And I see all these ads, I'm saying, this is as comfortable as wearing my underwear. Oh, girl, hell no. It's not comfortable. It's very uncomfortable. At least to me, I found it was uncomfortable, particularly here in Costa Rica where it's hot as hell. You really don't want a plastic bag on your ass. I'm just going to come right out and say it. And for me, it was oh, hell no. I took it off and said, look, I'll take my chances. If you want to put a pad on the bed to catch anything that might come out, you're welcome to do so, but I am not wearing that thing. A brief is what he had to call it when I worked as a CNA. Sarah, I knew there were other names for it. She also what a prisoner wears, executed all those poor prisoners. That's kind of cruel and unusual punishment too. And like I said, not comfortable at all. I don't care how many ads they have of smiling Latino, Black, or white women in their little their garments and they're dancing around going, this is so comfortable and discreet and nobody knows. Like, I knew. walking like had a bale of hay between my legs too, so it was not a good thing. And astronauts, I think the astronauts have a better grade. I would think that NASA would supply them with awesome briefs or whatever you want to call it, not the regular Depends with the plastic on the outside. See, Java Man, I think that's probably the thing. It depends upon what you're used to wearing. I live here in Costa Rica. If I wear underwear, it's usually cotton. It's usually cotton, comfortable cotton briefs. So and not a whole lot of material. So for me to wear those, it was just like not good. So sis, please don't wear those things. It's not comfortable. In your live streams before you crap your pants. And it happens. I mean, I've ended live streams before because I've had to go to the bathroom. And I didn't shout it out and say, I gotta go to the bathroom. I just ended the stream like abruptly sometimes. Before you launched on, I saw you two enemas. Clean them out, clean them out. That's one way to do it. So yeah, it's kind of interesting when you think about that and what we're used to and all of that. Yeah, I'm 61. I'm going to be 62 in 3 months exactly. And this getting old stuff is for the birds. There's a lot of indignities that they will push on you that I've not had to do. I bought some pins to wear postpartum and found them way more comfy than the fishnet undies and overalls. Brenda Lee, that I can see because the fishnet undies and the pad were the worst. So you might have a point. It's just here in Costa Rica. It's not an option for me. I'm not wearing any of that. The point is to wear as little as possible here because it's hot as hell. Hot as hell. Really, you might have gotten a better grade than the ones they brought me in the hospital there and insisted that I wear. I mean, you may well have. And for me, that was the other thing about the stupid hospital is they kept insisting I had COVID. And I said, here's my test from 12 hours ago. I didn't have COVID then. I said, well, look at your x-ray. And looked at it and said, that doesn't look like COVID. It just looks like I have a little congestion right along here. I said, yes, it looks like COVID. So they ran another COVID test. They kept saying my whole problem was I had COVID. And then the COVID test was negative, the second one. And the CT scan of my lungs said my lungs were clear. So rather than admit it, they said, oh, you fought off COVID within 2 hours of getting it. And it's like, no, that's not how COVID works. So between the experience with the Depends and that, those were two of just many. I still have places on my arm that are all torn up from the 9 different IVs they tried to give me. I couldn't convince them to put the blood pressure cuff on my leg. They were tearing up my arms big time. There was just so many things that went haywire when when I was in the hospital that I just begged. I begged my doctor and husband to let me out of the hospital. Said I will go home. Wool or cotton undies if I lived. Tropical. I wear the wool ones. I mean the cotton ones, not the yeah, I hate being wet too. So I have a couple that supposedly wick away the moisture too that I will wear sometimes. And sometimes we just go without here. We just wear the swimsuits a lot. It was pretty terrible, Brenda Lee, and it's not indicative of hospitals here because I've been in the hospital here. My husband has too. We went to a totally different hospital than this one. And this one was supposed to be pretty highly rated, but it was not a good experience. So I know better. I know the next time when I'm given a choice, I'm going back to the one that I've had nothing but good experiences at. So I'm waiting now to see if I come down with MRSA. Almost always when I have a hospital visit, I get MRSA. So we'll see. We'll see. And I'm still recovering. That's why I'm trying to mop the floors today. When I first came back, there was just no way that I could do any housework. I tried to tell my husband. We had our usual lady that does housework for him. She didn't do a very good job. And I've got to hire somebody else. She's not doing a great job. And so I've got to go clean the house now, because this is the first time I felt semi-normal. Yesterday, I felt semi-normal till 3 o'clock, and then I was just done for the day. I'm hoping today I can get at least to 4 o'clock, because if I can do that, I can get everything mopped and cleaned and get all of the dusting that was not done right done. Those are the two things that have to happen next without the pens. Okay, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and go because I pretty much run out of things to say. I was going to tell you guys all about my crazy Mardi Gras stories from growing up in New Orleans, but I think I'll save that for another day. I'll just tell you my funniest one, I think, is my Mardi Gras happened, and every year we would have to bail my stepbrother out of jail. Why? Because he tended to moon people and flash his dong, and that's a big no-no in New Orleans. That will get your butt arrested and thrown in jail every single time. It certainly got my stepbrother in jail and said, Frank, don't do that. To no avail. Poor Frank. She needs a job. Yes, hire KJ. She needs a job. I don't want her cleaning my house. I've got huge windows. I need somebody who can do the windows, somebody who can sweep and mop and dust. If you do that, we're golden. You do a half-ass job, we're gonna have some issues. So we're having some issues now. So I wait for Sylvia, the lady I used to use, to come back from Nicaragua. I will have to hire her all again. A lot of those wicking fabrics are made of polyester, so I don't know how it's supposed to help. Yeah. It does help. It helps. I mean, I don't know how that helps either, because I use my cotton ones mostly. Brindley, yeah, I like wool leggings. I used to wear them in the States. So take care, everybody. I'm getting ready to do all that. So have pity upon me. I have to don my N95 to do the dusting. I'm not supposed to be sweeping, but hell yeah. We're doing it. Boobs, yes, dong, no. That's exactly right. That is New Orleans in a nutshell. Boobs, yes, dong, no. A good description of the city at all times. Okay, you guys, I'll see you later. Don't be fooled by KJ's frantic flopping around. She's trying anything now to bring in the views.